In 2024, I volunteered for the Trump 47 campaign. I was a Trump Force captain. I wore a lanyard and I went door knocking. I showed very strong early support between the election and his inauguration. And even on this channel, many of my videos in early 25 are very complimentary and supportive of the administration's agenda and executions. However, along the way, I have begun to notice things. Notice a blind allegiance, an adherence, and excuse-making to the Trump administration.
How is net negative migration a failure?
We're not getting mass deportations. That's
You
what we're
don't
talking
have
about.
to massively deport people who aren't coming in, dude. You don't have to.
They're already here.
Yes, and by the way, he's going after the criminal elements of those people first, which he's been doing. There's a net negative of them crossing into the border. If you had said day one with any Republican administration, we'd have only 1,000 border crossings a day versus 46,000 border crossings a day, you'd say it's the biggest fucking success anybody had ever seen.
How about this?
Somehow with Trump, though, Trump gets exactly that done day one,
No.
and Owen goes, well, what have you done for me lately?
There should be dozens of Epstein
Then
arrests.
it's part of the
They are
debates.
literally
Of who?
covering it up.
Tell me who.
Exactly. They've redacted the names. They've
Who
redacted
should we be arresting? Exactly.
I'd love
What does
to
that
know.
mean?
Why are all the names redacted from the files?
Because
Why haven't they
I'll
given
tell
us
you.
all the files?
I'll actually tell you. And if you had done your due diligence, you would know this.
Oh, because they're victims.
No.
These people call themselves the plan trusters and call anybody who defects a panican. I began to notice a sort of MAGA matrix. And for the sake of this video, I want to highlight 4 topics in which I find this MAGA matrix falling apart. Or maybe not as much falling apart as it is creating a very clear distinction between truth and reality and dogma and talking points. Of the 4 topics I want to talk about today are mass deportations, the Epstein Files, no new wars, and economy. To begin, I would like to talk about the issue that I cover probably most on this channel, which is mass deportations.
Mark my words, I swear, mark my words, clip this, he is going to walk back the mass deportations. Mark my words, he's going to walk that back. What's going to be the cope then? Like, it's not going to happen. Even if he doesn't walk it back, it's never going to happen.
So the promised scale of mass deportations that the Trump administration campaigned on was about 1 million per year. Now, considering that the Biden administration had let in upwards of 10 to 15 million people across their 4 years, 1 million per year, that is already too little. But, of course, it's better than nothing. And it's a sign the administration cares about the issue. The scale that we have achieved thus far, however, is short of that. Much more short of that. Now, it depends on where you get your numbers.
No, none of it has happened.
Be specific. What hasn't happened?
We haven't deported millions of illegals.
We have.
We have deported 2.5 people,
No,
2.5 million people.
2.5 million.
Yes,
in fact,
we have.
In fact,
We
Trump
have.
has deported less than Barack Obama.
You just said
we
you
have.
liked the border. That was the only good
No,
thing.
we have.
The border is different
Illegal
than
crossings are
deportations.
down at like
and
0.
The border is different than deportations.
Obama
so we need more
deported
deportations.
3.1 million people in
Now,
8
granted,
years.
Obama.
8 years.
Who deported more?
Obama
Obama or
deported
Trump?
3.1
Well,
million
Obama-
people in 8 years.
Obama
we have
fudges
done
those numbers.
2.5
He
million.
includes turnaways.
So when Trump comes out and says we have to keep the workers here because our economy needs them, so we're not doing mass deportations, how do you explain that?
No, Trump has the largest deportation operation in American history. He literally is still ongoing, and he's actually getting opposition from inside his own party. He's being so effective at it, and we're not even talking about it anymore.
So you guys are okay with the deportations?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So that's just a difference.
Feel
Remember
as if
when
they're
he-
adequate after having 10, 15 million come in under Biden alone, and you're going to bring up a 2 million figure? Is it?
Well, that's kind of my point. Is
However, I took about a generous of a range as I could. So if you go to the administration themselves and you look at their numbers to see how many interior removals that we had in the country since the beginning of the administration, you'll get a number of about 605,000. That's from the horse's mouth. If you look at some other estimates and ranges, of course, Axios had the 423, famously. I could find sources that estimate the actual number of interior removals 350 to 300,000 migrants, with many more being arrested, but only those number of people being removed. Now, the reasons for and the justifications for these mass deportations are numerous. Number one is the rule of law, just straight up. These people entered the country illegally, and thus letting them stay is a slap in the face to what the law means, if it were to mean anything at all. Letting these people stay here is an insult to the legal system in of itself. Number two is we were invaded. We don't know who these people are. You can't have upwards of 10 million people flood the country in a short amount of time and everything be okay. It creates great destabilization and chaos, which leads to a cultural hijacking of the nation. These people do not assimilate. These people will stay in pockets, ethnic pockets around the country, create ghettos, create this tribal warfare to the fact where we saw in LA last year, the riots was a Mexican riot. The Mexican people, the migrants and the citizens there, showed their true allegiance, flying the Mexican flag in Los Angeles against ICE. And of course, last but not least, we have the economic kneecapping effect of mass migration. These people, the third world, you import the third world, you'll get the third world. You'll get a third world standard of living. You'll have people who go ahead and undercut American wages. And the importing of these people put upwards pressure on inflation and prices. But when we go ahead and look at the MAGA talking points, the MAGA matrix, what do they say? Well, self-deportations are high.
Under Biden alone, and you're going to bring up a 2 million figure? Is it?
Well, that's kind of my point, is look at the quagmire he inherited. 12 million people is more than Ellis Island in its totality.
Right, but that's the whole point, is that if you're going to promise mass deportations and only deliver, as Linda's saying, 2 million.
He's deporting more than any
2.5
president.
million in a year and a half.
He's slowing it down, too.
He's not slowing it down.
Well, that's the rhetoric that they're giving us.
Right, because you guys now propagate fake news.
Listen,
that's what you guys do.
I'm listening to Trump.
That's what you guys do.
Literally, it's Trump
you
saying
guys
it.
push fake news.
Trump multiple times from the White House has said we have to keep these illegal workers here. That's his own word. So is Trump fake news?
I haven't heard that.
Did he not talk about
You're the one that says you don't pay attention. You seem to not
Did
pay
I say you
attention.
don't pay attention? I said you're
That's what seems to
spreading
be the
fake
case
news,
here.
and you have.
And yet you can't say
And you have.
what's the fake news?
Everything
How can you accuse me?
Everything
Hold on.
But many people, when they talk about self-deportations, they don't really know what they are talking about. Ask anybody, and I'm sure they won't even know that this number comes from a community survey of about 65,000 households. And in the survey, one of the questions that they ask is the documentation status of the person. Before the big shock and awe operations of LA and Minneapolis, many migrants felt no disincentive to go ahead and answer truthfully. So the number of people who would answer it as if they're not documented or they're not legal immigrants gave us a rough idea of the population of the illegals in the country.
This is right. Okay, first net negative migration country, right, for over 30 years.
See, I dispute that. I don't think that's true.
Okay, go ahead, dispute it.
I think to say that it's net negative migration, you have to count self-deportations. I've seen a lot of different, and I think those are being overcounted because they took this number from the community survey from the census, which was taken last year, and there were 65,000 households polled, and they basically said, well, there was a lack of response from like non-residents, non-citizens of the United States, and then they used that to extrapolate, what was the number? 1.5 million people left the country. And then later, by the way, that data got corrected. It was in CIS, Confederation for Immigration, something or other, Center for Immigration Studies. They actually corrected the number with the new 2026 data and said, no, actually, we vastly overestimated how many illegals we thought left the country. So in other words, the government keeps track of how many people self-deport. That's not the number they're using. They're using this basically a guess based on a survey with a very small sample size to say, we think all these people left, and that's just not reliable. So I don't, that's not a good number. I don't believe that.
But when you do an operation like you do in Los Angeles and in Minneapolis, the big shock and awe raids, understandably, these people are going to be less likely to answer truthfully and fear of being deported. So they simply do not answer. But if they do not answer, then it decreases the total number of respondents. That decrease in the number of respondents is what they are claiming are self-deportations. That is where the number comes from. The lack or the decrease in respondents to the survey. Now, to call those all self-deportations is extremely generous. Am I going to sit here and say that none of them self-deported? Absolutely not. That would be ridiculous. Many people, I'm sure, had taken the easy way out. They didn't want to be physically removed from the country, so they did it on their own accord. But do I think that it is millions of people, as mostly peaceful Latinos suggested in the Brandon Straka debate?
And just so you know, Brandon, ICE went in front of Congress, and their goal, what they told Congress was, our goal is to deport 1 million a year, which means we're at 2.5. We have already surpassed the million goal that they had, which, in my opinion, I think 1 million is too low a year. But that's what Congress, that's what I said to Congress. This is our goal. It's about 3,000 and something people per day. It's low, and we're exceeding that expectation.
Well, that would be a total of 4 million at the end of his term,
right,
which is about 25% of what we're told came in under Biden.
I agree.
Here's the big issue.
Exactly.
Absolutely not. And I almost know that because the cash check that we are offering to those who self-deport has been raised over time. We are negotiating with the invaders of our country. So what else would I say? Well, the courts are in the way. Well, Trump, in his beginning of his administration, quoted Napoleon and said that he who saves his country breaks no laws. That is objectively correct. If you are going to let a handful of these rogue justices, these activist justices, keep you from saving the country, from preserving the nation, then you deserve to be blamed for its downfall. The mayors and the governors, they are pushing back.
To reject Donald Trump's fascism, to stop mass ICE agents from deporting our neighbors, and to govern our city as a model for the Democratic Party.
They are stopping the enforcement, and so therefore there's nothing he can do. Well, that's not true, actually. Trump can very easily enforce and invoke the Insurrection Act, which is 4 times in which localities, states, cities and states, their law enforcement, their officials, inhibit and prevent the federal government from enforcing federal law. They can put Mayor Fry and these governors, Pritzker, Karen Bass, he can put them behind bars for stopping ICE from doing their job. But of course, Trump does not want to do that. And of course, lastly, it's ugly for the midterms, and ultimately, it's unrealistic. See, this talking point may have had a little bit more justification, maybe more validation in December, January, February, around that time.
And we have a lot of heart. They said, you gotta lighten up on this. We have a lot of heart for people. They came in illegally, but they're good people, and they're working now on farms, and they're working in luncheonettes and hotels and all. And we're looking to get the criminals out right now, the criminals.
Before we had the war in Iran, because I'm not going to lie, the media coverage of the mass deportations were bad. And I had actually warned about this. If you go all the way back in the beginning of my coverage of this administration in January, in February, in March, I warned Republicans to stiffen your upper lip now, because the media and Democrats are going to kick and scream and make this as dirty as possible to scare you out of doing what needs to be done. Unfortunately, they have succeeded. But it's ugly for the midterms and it's unrealistic. It's ugly for the midterms, huh? But a full-on war with Iran is not. You had two choices here. You could either put all your political capital into mass deportations, or you could put all your political capital into a war with Iran. Only one of them has clear and objective benefits for the country, who the people of the nation will feel. That being mass deportations. You deport these foreigners, you deport the illegals in this country, and you will see an immediate increase in wages. You will see a decrease in inflation. You'll see a decrease in the pressure on social services. You will see this happen very rapidly. But what do we have instead? I'll cover it more later, but you have a war in Iran that is going to cost hundreds of billions of dollars, cost him political capital, and likely will lead to his impeachment.
Say, I am on the ballot, because in a real sense he is. If we were to lose the midterms, heaven forbid, these Democrats, y'all, impeachment's not even the big concern. They will turn every committee of Congress into an investigative body, and they'll go after the president's family, the cabinet, his donors and friends. Half of you in this room will be targeted. I run the protection program. I'll take care of you, okay? We're going to win. We're going to win the midterm, okay? All right? I'll leave.
Lastly, before I want to go ahead and proceed, the whole idea of these mass deportations is that they are an existential need. They are not a preferred want. Mass deportations are not like tax rates, where it'd be nice if they happened, but it's not the end of the world. We'll keep voting GOP and it'll happen eventually. Mass deportations are a need for this country, for the health and stability and the sovereignty of our nation. We were invaded. See, Donald Trump campaign and the rhetoric surrounding mass deportations was very urgent and existential, and I think that it was correct. You cannot have 10, 15, 20 million people cross the border the way that they did in our country and act as if that is not a pressing, immediate, urgent, existential issue. Now, I believe you can walk and chew gum at the same time, but in order to go ahead and do that, you have to walk. The big, beautiful bill provided the funding necessary for mass deportations to be executed to the scale that was promised. MAGA touted the bill as the bill. I defended the bill. I defended that bill. I said, it's not a perfect bill, but I care about mass deportation, so I defended it.
I defend it!
Much to my chagrin, we didn't get it. Mass deportations are an existential need, not a preferred want. The execution of mass deportations determines the sovereignty of the United States and its future. Without mass deportations, what we effectively get is what we effectively have now, which is soft political amnesty.
There's no amnesty. What we're doing is we're getting rid of criminals, but we are doing a work program. Do you want to explain that, please?
Yeah, this morning we talked about, of course, this was a top of mind question. This morning we talked about protecting the farmers and the farmland, but obviously this president's vision of no amnesty, mass deportation continues, but in a strategic way, and then ensuring that our farmers have the labor that they need. Secretary Chavez DeRimmer has been a leader on this. Obviously this comes out of the Labor Department, but moving toward automation, ensuring that our farmers have that workforce and moving toward an American workforce. So all of the above.
We've got to give the farmers the people they need, but we're not talking amnesty.
When you go from tracking down every illegal immigrant to only the criminals, you make the average American, the everyday American, sitting ducks to be raped, burglarized, robbed, assaulted, murdered before we actually go after them in a meaningful way. We have the economic, cultural, and legal pressures pushing the necessity of mass deportations, the wages, as I brought up earlier, the housing affordability, as I'll bring up later, the legal pressures, the social services, the courts. They all must fall by the wayside for the betterment of the country. Trump ought to have invoked the Insurrection Act if he was so worried about cities and states not complying. But he didn't. Why? Because his donors at big businesses, the big business, those who own the farms, who own the manufacturing plants, who own the factories, they went to Donald Trump and said, listen, our workforce is illegal. The hospitality industry, these workers, our working base is illegal. And if you deport these people, we will have to pay American wages. We do not want to do that. So if you want to keep our money flowing into your political party, you will cease doing your mass deportations. And Trump has agreed. While cracking down domestically, other core promises face complications. And of course, I am referring to the Epstein Files.
It's sitting on my desk right now to review.
The Dow is over 50,000 right now.
Now, the campaign vowed to be different. This administration was going to be the transparency administration.
If you were president, would you declassify, you can answer yes or no to these. Yeah. Would you declassify the 9/11 files?
Yeah.
Would you declassify JFK files?
Yeah.
Would you,
I did a lot of it.
Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would.
All right.
I guess I would. I think that less so because, you don't know it. You don't want to affect people's lives if it's phony stuff in there because there's a lot of phony stuff with that whole world. But I think I would, or at least
do you think that would restore trust? Help restore trust?
Yeah, I don't know about Epstein so much as I do the others.
They were going to be the different administration. Hell, Trump brought on RFK, much to bring credibility to that statement. The nephew of JFK was going to join the team because Bobby is going to want to know what happened to his uncle. You bring in Tulsi Gabbard to go against the deep state, along with Dan Bongino and Kash Patel.
You kind of can't ignore that this is a blatant violation of a promise, that not only Donald Trump made during the campaign, where he did say he would release the Epstein files. He did kind of, he said it in a kind of sitting on the fence way, but he did say it. But man, dude, for Dan Bongino and Kash Patel and Pam Bondi, who have all just been on record straight up saying, we have the files, but even before they were in office, Dan Bongino and Kash Patel went so hard on this issue. Like this is like the equivalent of me getting in and then just like supporting regime change in Iran.
Of course, Pam Bondi went after pedophiles and sex trafficking rings in Florida as her time as Florida Attorney General. So this administration, this campaign was primed to be the difference maker. They were going to be different this time. Unfortunately, however, it has not been like that. We had to have Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie force the hand of the DOJ to release these documents.
I mean, what we're after is the men who Jeffrey Epstein trafficked women to. We want those names published. We're not out to embarrass people. And the problem is we went in there hoping to see that in 302 forms. What we found out is those 302 forms were redacted before they got to the DOJ. But our legislation directs the FBI, which is the agency that produced those 302 forms, to also produce these documents. The Attorney General is ultimately responsible for that production, so that's why we're here at the DOJ to view these files. But there needs to be more information given in those 302s. So I was disappointed we didn't find that.
Because they went from being on Pam Bondi's desk to being a Democrat hoax.
It's sitting on my desk right now to review.
So this is a Democrat hoax that never ends.
To really being a nothing burger. To Dan Bongino and Kash Patel destroying their career credibility instantly when they said that Epstein had killed himself.
You said Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide. People don't believe it. Well, I mean, listen, they have a right to their opinion, but as someone who has worked as a public defender, as a prosecutor, who's been in that prison system, who's been in the Metropolitan Detention Center, who's been in segregated housing, you know a suicide when you see one, and that's what that was.
He killed himself. You want me to? I've seen the whole file. He killed himself.
We had redactions. We had delays, which, of course, as I said, forced the hand of Thomas Massie and Ro Khanna to pass the act to compel the release of the files.
It's not readable. It's completely redacted. For the most part, the first 50 pages.
But what has MAGA said about the Epstein Files? What has been the defenses? Well, the Epstein Files are a Democrat hoax.
Emily, I know she hasn't tuned out exactly, but I think as far as the Epstein Files, I completely disagree. I'm an Epstein freak, as I told you, and I think the case has been completely misrepresented by figures, Alex Jones and others, to have clicks and views, and there's no such thing as a massive panic pedo elite raping children.
Now, to be fair to MAGA here, what they mean to say is that the Democrats did not care about the Epstein Files under Biden and are only using it to get at Trump this time around. And the panicans are falling for it. Well, that is correct. Joe Biden did not do it. Because Joe Biden is not you. Because you said that you were different. And when you say that you are different, that means a different criteria of grading. If you aren't ready for that, then don't market yourself as the different one. Epstein was just a pedophile himself. He didn't have this network of people. He was one guy. So it's interesting. Epstein apparently just trafficked all of these kids, all these minors, to his island just for the love of the game. Interesting. Number 3, there is no evidence. All of these people, the panicans, the people who are obsessing over the files, they have no evidence.
As we go through this, let's talk about Epstein. That's another big one. With Epstein, you have to separate mythology, the actual mythology of Epstein, from the facts of Epstein. To hear the other side tell it, there is a global pedophilic satanic organization which runs the United States. The evidence they have for that? Fucking nothing. They have nothing. They have no evidence whatsoever. Guarantee you he won't be able to provide us with any evidence for that. Not a single shred.
Partially because you are blocking it. The administration is blocking the redacting process, or the unredacting process, and the releasing of these files. Don't get me started on the various names who are included in the files that we know of.
Who are the men that should be investigated? I'll name them right here. Leon Black. You don't even have to see past the redactions to see that this man needs to be investigated. Jess Staley, accused of terrible things. It's right there in the files. Why is he not being investigated? And Leslie Wexner. Why did the FBI list him as a co-conspirator in their own documents in a child sex trafficking case and then tell him, according to him, that they had no questions for him? Why is that? Well, the Epstein Files Transparency Act requires the DOJ and the FBI to disclose to us their internal memos and emails about how they made those decisions, whether to prosecute or not prosecute. Yet they have not delivered those memos. And we still don't have the memos and documents and emails from 2008 to explain why Jeffrey Epstein was given such a light sentence in what would have been an open and shut case of child sex trafficking.
Pam Bondi said that they had tapes, hours and gigabytes of tapes of essentially child pornography. Are you to tell me that all those videos are just of Jeffrey Epstein? I don't believe that they are. And lastly, it's not a priority. There are a million things I'd rather worry about than Jeffrey Epstein. Really, there are a million things that you would rather care about than the exposing of a global pedophilic child sex trafficking campaign, blackmailing campaign. Okay. That is an interesting stance to take. I'm glad that you're taking it, because I sure as hell will not. As I said before, Trump was supposed to be different. You say, okay, yes, Biden did not go after these things. Well, you're saying that you're better than Joe Biden. You said it, you are different. You are the campaign who is going to bring everything out into the open. JFK, MLK, RFK, Jeffrey Epstein. And the handling of it has been an abject failure, and they ought to be ashamed of themselves. Hell, he had lawfare going against him, Trump did. He was going after in New York. He had attempts on his life. He was supposed to be the guy who was willing to buck the establishment for real this time. This wasn't like last time where he was new to Washington. He didn't know where other creatures were. He was naive to the process and he was easily manipulated and taken advantage of. This Trump knew better. This Trump was prepared to take action. And he hasn't. It's been a blatant cover-up by one Dan Bongino, Kash Patel, and Pam Bondi. I'll give it to him that he got rid of Pam Bondi, but Todd Blanche is not much better. Of course, however, trust issues at home mirror foreign policy shifts. And of course, I am talking about the notorious no new wars.
What changed? Because you insisted no new wars.
First of all, I didn't guarantee no war. Why would I have built the strongest military in the world? I built our military. I inherited a terrible military. We had no equipment. We had nothing. I built a tremendous military. Biden gave a lot of it away, but it's still a relatively small portion compared to what I built.
But you said it over and over again, Mr.
Why would I
President?
build a military? Now, I didn't want to use this, but I'm doing you and everybody else a big favor. In the midst of the greatest stock market in history, in the midst of the most successful country, because as you know, in the last term, we were a dead country, Kristen. I know you're a big liberal or a big progressive.
No,
but
I'm just a journalist.
Trump, during the campaign, had correctly and accurately noted that he was the first president of the 21st century under which Vladimir Putin did nothing against or during. Of course, during Bush, he took Georgia. During Obama, he took Crimea. And under Biden, he took Ukraine. But under Trump 1, he took nothing. That was true. And I echoed that same talking point. He said no new wars.
First of all, I didn't guarantee no war. I'm not going to start a war. I'm going to stop wars.
No more wars, no more disruptions. We will have prosperity and we will have peace. Under Trump, we will have no more wars, no more disruptions, and we will have prosperity and peace for all. I am the candidate of peace. I am peace. We will turn the page forever on those foolish, stupid days of never-ending wars. They never ended.
No new wars. Since taking office, he has started 2 new wars. He has started the 12-day war, bombing the nuclear sites in Iran, an operation that was supposed to be a one-time operation, a one-time wonder. And of course, he started a second war with Iran that we have just signed a memorandum of understanding of at the time of this recording. We will see how that plays out. Despite these 2 actions, these 2 blatant breaking of the promises, the defenses are as follows. Number 1, it was quick and easy operation in a 12-day war. We were in and out. Only we could do it. Israel did not have the bombs, nor did they have the bombers to deliver them. And so therefore, we had to bail out our ally. The neocons got their way. And number 4, the nuclear option for MAGA is, do you want a nuclear Iran?
Do you want Iran? Let's just go on. Do you want Iran to get nuclear weapons?
They don't have one. They weren't building one.
Do you want them to get nuclear weapons? Do you want Iran to get nuclear weapons?
Why are we doing this?
Do you want Iran to get nuclear weapons?
They did Operation Midnight Hammer August of 2024.
Why won't you respond to the question? It's a very simple question.
June, thank you.
Are you okay with Iran getting nuclear weapons?
I'm not doing. They don't have fucking nukes, man.
Do you want Iran to get nuclear weapons?
Where do we draw the line? Are we okay with North Korea getting nuclear weapons?
No.
When we look at the situation with Trump moving into Lindsey Graham's, realm and out of Massey's realm, the way I interpret that is Trump is not with the anti-establishment. He's not against the GOP. He's not against the neocons. To me, that symbolizes that Trump has joined the neocons and abandoned everyone else. That's the way I interpret that.
Do you want to give them that? A very either or black and white world in a universe where black and white issues don't exist. See, the Iran conflicts flared coincidentally at the same time the Epstein File issue got a little too loud. The 12-day war failed and was not enough. In fact, internal reports and sources show that the administration was aware of this. The people who kind of organize the rhetoric around these operations and these issues had told Trump that they had to be careful, Carol Levitt, and how they defended the Iran war because it risked contradicting the administration's rhetoric around the success of the 12-day war. Because if the 12-day war was so successful and holistic, then the current war in Iran wouldn't have been necessary. The current Iran war is orchestrated by Bibi Netanyahu and the neocons in the administration, strong-arming Trump to join them in launching the war. Of course, that includes Israel, essentially going to the United States, as Marco Rubio said himself. So this is not me speculating. This is Marco Rubio. We can play the clip.
We knew that there was going to be an Israeli action. We knew that that would precipitate an attack against American forces. And we knew that if we didn't preemptively go after them before they launched those attacks, we would suffer higher casualties and perhaps even higher those killed. And then we would all be here answering questions about why we knew that and didn't act.
Saying that we went after Iran because Israel was going after them first, and we essentially had to cover our ass. Hundreds of billions of dollars in economic shocks hit because of this war, with Trump actually recently admitting that the shortage of oil accelerated the timeline.
Also, we run out of reserves in about 4 weeks. There are reserves all over the world, and we would really run out. And there'll be a time when you wouldn't be able to get it. And you want to see bedlam? So for all those so-called geniuses that want to show me how smart they are.
To get to the off-ramp. The initial objectives are not met. Iran still has enriched uranium. They still have their missile capacity. The New York Times reported that they're only a few months set back. By the end of the year, they're right back where they were. The regime is strong. The morale is high with this memorandum of understanding. And Iran now has something that they actually did not have at the beginning of this conflict, which is control over the Strait of Hormuz. That is new, and that was not there before. This is allowing Iran to show off that they withstood the U.S. and Israel's strongest offensive and survived.
Missile interceptors, about 50% of the inventory of Patriot ballistic missile interceptors, and 50, likely closer to 80% of terminal high altitude area defense interceptors were expended in the course of the war. Over 1,000, that's about a third of our entire stockpile of Tomahawk cruise missiles has been expended. Large quantities of the JASSM missiles, as well as pretty much the entire pre-war inventory of new precision strike missiles, the PrSMs that were used. Also, interestingly enough, because we were told there was never any threat to our Navy, this is why, of course, they never really dared to go through the Strait of Hormuz, the Navy reports that they expended large quantities of their SM-3 and SM-6 naval interceptors, which indicates to me, if I may conjecture here, that there must have been one hell of a fight over the security of our ships when the war was in its kinetic phase. So the White House was lying when they said that the ships were totally safe. Our ships are very much at risk, obviously.
Now, I've gone over this multiple times in the past, over streams, and my coverage of the Iran conflict was very consistent. I've always said that I do not give Trump grace on this issue because it was avoidable. The only reason why Trump got into this mess is because he let Bibi Netanyahu and the neocons talk him into launching this war. He could not tell his ally no. Because of that, he got himself between a rock and a hard place. He had two solutions, two options. Both of them are terrible, but one is fractionally, marginally better than the other. The best option is what he's doing now. It is going after a deal with Iran. Now, this only helps him in maybe one or two ways, but hurts him everywhere else. But it is the best option. The places that it helps him is at home domestically with the public image and approval rating. He will get a slight boost from this, from ending the war. And he saves time, energy, and lives. Everything else he loses on.
I wonder, Tucker, where this leaves the future of the MAGA movement. I mean,
the future of the MAGA. Well, that's over. There's no future of the MAGA movement. Obviously, we're done.
This war caused the end.
Yeah, it doesn't. I mean, what is the MAGA movement? Trump has defined it as whatever he wants. Well, it's not a movement. That's a tick. That's a preference. It's like, what do I feel like having for breakfast this morning? Well, today it's, the pancake movement. It'll be Eggs Benedict movement tomorrow. Like, it's not a movement. It's just like it's a desire.
But you believed in it.
Well, I never understood what it was. No, I never believed in MAGA. I believe in making America great again. I certainly believe in its literal definition, but its operational definition was never clear. What I believe in is putting your country first. If you're leading your country, of course, its concerns are at the top of your list of concerns.
The United States loses on the global stage as they tried to go ahead and take on Iran with the help of Israel, and it was simply not enough.
And this war was the most obvious betrayal of that. We didn't go to war to protect our own interests. We went to war to serve Israel's interests. They've said that out loud. So this is not a conspiracy theory. That's contemptible. That's wrong.
We emptied the magazine. We emptied the clip. We actually achieved a number of ceasefires so that we could reload and hit them again. And like a hydra, once you cut off the head, two more sprung out. The Iranian regime was heavily underestimated. And they fought back. They choked the straits. And they basically waited out the West in the war successfully. Their missile capacities are not meaningfully destroyed. Their nuclear enrichment is still intact. Their regime has not been changed. Their navy has been sunk, but was obsolete anyway.
A conditional surrender document. The United States started a war and it promptly lost. The Iranians have, unfortunately, strategically, at the strategic level, they have achieved victory. And where I think this goes geopolitically is a post-American Middle East in which Israel is likely now the pariah state, whereas before the war, you'll remember, even after 10/7, the Abraham Accords were really still in effect, and they were working Israel as sort of the center of this new U.S.-backed order in the Middle East. That's gone. And there's now going to be a new Middle East, and it's going to comprise, and this is my friend Dr. Artem Moini, this has been his thesis as well, and I agree with him. There's going to be 5 powers in the Middle East now. It's going to be Saudi Arabia, the Islamic Republic of Iran, Pakistan with their nuclear umbrella, the Egyptians, second largest economy in Africa, one of the best, I think it's probably the best conventional military in the Muslim world, and then Turkey with its very impressive industrial indigenous.
Not much has been lost on the Iranian side. And Iran knew going into the war that the United States was not in a position of strength. They knew that Trump was incentivized to get this over with now because the American people would not let him do this again, and Europe would not let him do this again because Europe is hurting far more than we are, and they're hurting because of us. The worst decision would be boots on the ground, but it would also be the only way to actually achieve all of the aims of the war. It would be the only way to fully decapitate the nuclear program. It was the only way to fully destroy the missile capacity. The only way to truly reopen the strait on our terms. And of course, it was the only way to enact regime change. Now, abroad and at home, the results, as I said before, ultimately have hit the wallets of everyday Americans. I am, of course, now going to the economy. Now, the inherited context and promises of the economy were to lower inflation and bring back the economy of the first Trump administration. The first Trump administration, the economy was absolutely superb. The interest rates were at near zero. Everything was going on all cylinders. It was fantastic. Over Biden, we have the inflationary wave that has bled over into this second Trump administration. The metrics thus far are not very good. Growth-wise, our GDP is growing, but at a slower and slower pace. We have the weakest consumer spending and confidence in decades. Unemployment was notably and admittedly only a small rise, going from 4.2 to 4.3 in the unemployment rate, but the labor market has cooled significantly. Ask anybody how hard getting a job is. The inflation is 2.7 year over year from December 24 to December 25, with a sharp rise due to the Iran war. And of course, you have the housing affordability crisis.
There's so much talk about, we're going to drive housing prices down. I don't want to drive housing prices down. I want to drive housing prices up.
As I mentioned before, much of this is due to illegal migrants being here. As a recent Fed report showed, upwards of 30% of the increase in housing prices are due to migrant supply and demand pressure. You also have the tariffs and illegal labor effects. Because of Trump's dubious legal method of enacting the Liberation Day tariffs, most of them have been overturned.
This latest headline coming in from the Supreme Court, global tariffs struck down by the Supreme Court.
Yep, so today was going to be the fate of whether or not Trump's IEEPA tariffs, which about 60 to 75% of the tariff policy right now in the United States is based off of, and the Supreme Court making this decision, a redhead across the Bloomberg terminal, Trump's global tariffs are struck down by the U.S. Supreme Court.
With taxpayer refunds owed to the importers. And this is coming from someone who is pro-tariff. I am a protectionist. I made a video, I believe, on the Liberation Day tariffs and why they were a good thing. Tariffs are a good thing. But they are only a good thing if they're done correct and they stick. To MAGA, he inherited a mess, which is true. However, what they don't want to admit, and what Trump does not want to admit, is that partially this inflationary crisis was started by Donald Trump himself. What MAGA and what Trump doesn't want to admit is that Trump, in his first administration, started the fire.
But we begin with President Trump signing the COVID-19 relief bill to avoid a government shutdown. Trump still made clear, though, that he opposes much of what's in the bill, and he's demanding more money be sent directly to Americans. White House correspondent Rachel Scott has the latest.
Overnight, President Trump changing course again, finally signing the $2.3 trillion spending and stimulus relief bill with just 24 hours to go until a government shutdown.
See, during a pandemic, you shut down the businesses, which may cause some push and pull inflation. But what Trump initiated was the first wave of stimulus checks. This was pure helicoptering of cash to Americans for nothing. A blatant increase in the money supply, when inflation is quite literally too much monies chasing too few goods. If you have $10 and you have 10 apples, each apple is worth $1. But if you double the money supply and you're now $20 in the economy, but only 10 apples as before, well, the price of apples just doubled. That is how inflation works. And Trump started the fire. He started the money printing. Not to say that Joe Biden didn't add to it with the Inflation Reduction Act, but Trump's hands are not clean. They are not clean. And we did not have to shut down the economy during 2020. So we inherited a mess that he partially created. Number two, he's trying his best. Well, I'm not sure if that's true. Because with the big, beautiful bill, large deficits, but we aren't even taking advantage of that bill. We could have mass deportations, which are helping the inflationary effect, but we're not. We don't see that, actually. We see an administration that gave up on mass deportations, actually. The courts are against him. That being the courts for the tariffs. Well, if Trump had done things the correct way and not done things in a bombastic way, he had been responsible and intelligent, he wouldn't have these legal issues. He did this in the first administration, and the tariffs in his first administration stuck because he did them the right way. What you can't do is use emergency powers for a non-emergency purpose, which is what he did. The inflation is temporary because of the Iran war. Well, as we noted before, the Iran war was optional. It was not necessary. It was not forced. It did not have to happen. And because it didn't, because Trump could not tell the neocons and Bibi don't do it or control his ally, we went to war.
This is part of a shift that is happening away from the interpretation of this not very good MOU in sort of J.D. Vance fashion and toward a much more Marco Rubio-like foreign policy. The idea is that we're not going to keep overlooking Iranian violence, particularly in the Strait of Hormuz. That's great. It's excellent. And the reason it's excellent is because you need the credible threat of use of force in order to get the Iranians to even abide by basic terms of agreements. And when you add what just happened in the Strait of Hormuz to the move that was made by Secretary of State Rubio at the behest of President Trump in this deal between Israel and Lebanon, you're starting to see the beginning of a good foreign policy emerge once again in the Middle East.
And so therefore, that is on Donald Trump. Lastly, it's the interest rates. Once the interest rates come down, then everything will be fine. Except the interest rates cannot come down. And this is why I think that actually the person who has the worst job in the world right now is actually Warsh, the new head, the new chairman of the Federal Reserve, whose entire job was he was selected by Trump, nominated by Trump, and confirmed by the Senate to do one thing, to lower the interest rate. But Warsh knows that if he lowers the interest rate, then all the money printing that we've been doing for years and continue to do is going to come home to roost. If you think things are expensive now, just wait until if Warsh lowers or drops interest rates. It will explode. Explode. So Warsh is doing the right thing in not touching interest rates. The core of all Trump apologetics is not a defense of Donald Trump, because the fallback argument is always he's better than Biden or Kamala. MAGA supporters know that they cannot defend Trump on merit.
What is one main metric that Donald Trump has made better off since he got in office? So like an example would be GDP, unemployment, inflation, et cetera.
Well, right now, first off, the big beautiful bill was just passed last year and it's kicking in now, right? It's kicking in now. Okay, so we're going to now see results of that, like even the tariffs. All right, so let's do tariffs. Are you for or against tariffs?
Against the universal tariff. So what's the main metric that he made better off?
What?
What's the main metric that he made better off? GDP, unemployment, inflation? Do you have any idea?
Listen.
I don't think you do.
Do you think, hold on, so you're arguing that things economically were better under Joe Biden
at the end of his administration, absolutely.
Yeah,
so they use a relativist lens. They end up here because their media consumption and their makeup are engineered and manufactured to stay within the Overton window. They are stuck in an either-or universe, which breeds the pathetic politicians like Lindsey Graham and Ted Cruz, the socially liberal, fiscally conservative, constitutionalist types, the rhinos. They are not scared of criticizing Trump. They just don't know it's an option. If they don't support Trump in their eyes, they are a Democrat transgender. In the end, The MAGA hive mind, the staple influencers peddling the feel-good talking points and nostalgia, the Benny Johnsons, the Jack Posobiec, the Eric Dougherty, Sean Hannity, Fox News, are willing to distract from failures by highlighting Democrat outliers, the extremes, the radicals. MAGA only knows two options. Number one is to be a Trump supporter through and through, or B, be a communist, America-hating Democrat. Politics does not have to be this way. There is an alternative. A true, dynamic, innovative, fearless, laser-focused movement pushing to do what Donald Trump vowed to do all the way back in 2016, putting America first. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, hit the like button. If you'd like to support and help the channel grow, become a member, subscribe, and ring the bell to be updated with all my uploads. Finally, whether you agree or disagree, leave your thoughts in the comment section below. I look forward to engaging with you guys in respectful and thoughtful discussions. With that said, I'll see you next video. See ya.